Get up and move immediately. I don't care what you think your status is. I own this airline. You're fired. Get me the ground crew. I'm asking you for the last time. Move to the back of the plane.
This is my plane.
And you're fired.
Yes. Sir, you need to stand up now. The words cut through the first-class cabin like a blade. No one spoke. A glass stopped halfway to someone's lips. Yes. The low hum of the engines seemed to shrink. Lauren Whitman stood in the aisle, spine straight, clipboard pressed to her chest. 39. Precise. Controlled. The kind of control that didn't ask questions. Yes, it decided. Her eyes were locked on seat 2A. David Brooks didn't move. 45. Dark suit. White shirt. No tie. Nothing flashy. Just clean lines and quiet presence. Yes. The kind of man people overlooked until they couldn't. I believe I'm in the right seat, he said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. Lauren's lip curled just slightly. Yes. Sir, we've had reports of a seating discrepancy. I need you to cooperate. Across the aisle, a man in a gray blazer shifted uncomfortably. He glanced at David, then quickly looked away. Yes. No one wanted to be part of this. David reached into his jacket, slow, deliberate. He pulled out his phone, tapped once, and turned the screen toward her. Boarding pass. Yes. Digital, clear, seat 2A name, David Brooks. Lauren didn't take it, not right away. She stared at it like she expected it to change. Then she gave a tight smile. This, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. I'll need to verify that again. Of course, David said. No resistance, no attitude. That should have ended it. It didn't. Yes. Lauren stepped back toward the galley. A tall man in uniform leaned in. Greg Collins, mid-40s, purser. He glanced at David, then smirked. What is he doing up here? Yes, he whispered, not quietly enough. Lauren didn't answer. She just watched. Watched how David sat, how he didn't fidget, didn't explain himself, didn't try to prove anything. That, more than anything, bothered her. This. The cabin door sealed with a soft hiss. A young flight attendant, barely in her 20s, came down the aisle with warm towels. Emily Carter. New, nervous smile. Still believed in the job. This. Good morning, sir, she said, handing one to David with both hands. He smiled back. Thank you. It was small, but it was real. Lauren saw it, and something hardened in her face. This. She turned sharply. Emily, move on. Emily hesitated, just for a second, then nodded and continued. The engines began to build. A low vibration ran through the floor. This. Lauren stepped back into the aisle, this time closer. Sir, she said, voice flatter now, I need to see your boarding pass again. A few heads turned. David looked up at her. This. Not annoyed, not intimidated, just steady. You already verified it, he said. I need to verify it again. No please, no explanation, just authority. David held her gaze for a moment. This. Then handed over his phone. Lauren took it this time. Actually took it. Her fingers lingered longer than necessary, like she was holding something she didn't trust. Behind her, Greg folded his arms. Yes, watching, waiting, the kind of silence that builds pressure. Lauren walked back to the galley with the phone. She stayed there. 1 minute, 2, 3. Passengers began to notice. This. A woman in row 1 leaned toward her husband. Why does she have his phone? He didn't answer. No one wanted to. David sat still, hands resting lightly on the armrest. This. Breathing even, like this wasn't new, like he had seen this before, and that was the part no one understood. Because to everyone else, this was just a man being questioned. Yes, but to David, this was something else. Something older, something deeper. Lauren finally returned. She handed the phone back. It checks out, she said. Yes. Then added, just loud enough for others to hear, for now, for now. The words hung in the air. David took the phone, set it down, didn't respond. Yes. Across the aisle, the man in the gray blazer shifted again. This time, he frowned. He knew what he had just witnessed. Not policy, not procedure. Something else, something quieter. Yes, and far more dangerous. Lauren turned away, already losing interest. To her, this was handled. To David, it had just begun. Yes. The seatbelt sign chimed off with a soft tone, but the tension in the cabin didn't move. Lauren rolled the beverage cart into the aisle like nothing had happened. Crystal glasses clinked. Yes. Ice shifted. Orange juice caught the light. She stopped at row 1. Smile back on, voice warm again. Champagne or orange juice, Mom? The woman in pearls smiled. Mimosa, please. This. Of course, Lauren poured carefully. Precise. Practiced. She moved seat by seat, laughing lightly, asking about Seattle weather, complimenting a man's watch. Everything smooth, everything effortless. Then she reached row 2. This. She skipped David, didn't slow down, didn't hesitate, straight to seat 2B. Champagne, Mom? The woman beside David blinked. Mid-40s, business type, laptop open, sharp eyes. She glanced at David. This. Then back at Lauren. Yes, she said slowly. Lauren poured her drink. Didn't look at David, didn't acknowledge him, didn't exist. The cart sat inches from his arm. David watched it. This. Waited. Gave her time. Excuse me, he said, calm as before. Could I have some orange juice, please? Lauren didn't turn her head. We're out. No pause, no apology. This. Just flat. The woman in 2B looked down at her glass. Fresh, full, cold, then at the cart, then at David. Her jaw tightened. Lauren moved on. Row 3. This. Row 4. Everyone got served. Every glass filled. Every smile delivered. When the cart rolled back toward the galley, the curtain shifted just enough. David could see inside 2 full bottles of champagne. This. A full pitcher of orange juice. Clean glasses stacked neatly. He didn't react, didn't call her out, didn't point. He reached into the seat pocket, pulled out a small notebook. Yes. Clicked his pen, wrote one line, 9:31 in the morning. Beverage service skipped, told we were out. He closed it, set the pen down. This. Across the aisle, the man in the gray blazer stared at him now, no more pretending. The woman in 2B leaned slightly closer, lowered her voice. Sir, are you okay? Yes. David nodded once. I'm fine, thank you. She didn't believe him, he knew that. But he wasn't here for comfort. 20 minutes passed. The cabin settled into that quiet rhythm of flight. Yes. Pages turning, ice melting, low conversations. Then Lauren came back, this time with Greg. They stopped at his row again. Same position. Same posture, sir, Lauren said, louder now. Yes. We need to resolve a seating discrepancy. A few heads turned again. David looked up. You already verified my pass twice. I need to verify it again. Greg stood behind her. This. Arms crossed, smile thin, like this was entertainment. David held her gaze for a second, then reached for his phone, unlocked it, turned the screen again. Lauren didn't just look this time. This. She took it, pulled it from his hand, walked away, back into the galley, and stayed there 1 minute, 2, 3, 4, 5. The cabin shifted. People noticed. This. The man in 1A leaned into the aisle. Is she allowed to do that? No answer. The woman in 2B had her phone out now, screen angled low. This. Recording. David sat still, hands folded now, breathing steady, but something had changed. Not outside, inside, because this wasn't about a seat anymore, or a drink, or a meal. This was about being erased in plain sight. Lauren returned after 6 minutes, handed the phone back. It checks out, she said again, then added, louder this time, for now. This. A few people heard it. Enough. David took the phone, didn't argue, didn't react. He opened the notebook again. 9:58 in the morning. Phone taken for 6 minutes. This. Boarding pass verified 3 times. He underlined the last part. Slow, deliberate. Then he closed it. Across the aisle, the gray blazer man shook his head slightly. Not in anger. This, in recognition. Because he had seen this before. Different place. Same pattern. And the worst part? Everyone could see it. No one stopped it. In the galley, Lauren laughed. Low. Yes, casual. Greg leaned in. Told you, upgrade scam. She nodded. I can always tell. The plane moved forward, smooth, controlled, 30,000 feet above the ground. This. And somewhere between silence and power, something was about to break. The smell of warm food drifted through the cabin before anyone saw the cart. It was subtle at first. This, then stronger. Herb, butter, roasted meat. Heads lifted. Conversations paused. Greg appeared in the aisle with a stack of leather menus tucked under his arm. His smile was back, polished. This. Professional. Good afternoon, sir, he said to row 1. Today's selections are herb-crusted lamb or pan-seared salmon. Menus were placed one by one. Carefully, respectfully. Row 1. Done. Row 2. This. He handed a menu to the woman in 2B. Didn't slow down, walked right past David. Just kept going, like the seat was empty. David didn't move, didn't call him out immediately. This. He waited, counted the seconds, let it settle. Then he spoke, soft, controlled. Excuse me, may I have a menu? Greg didn't turn, didn't stop this. Lauren will handle you, he said over his shoulder. Handle you, not serve, not assist. Handle, the words landed heavy. The woman in 2B stared at Greg as he walked away. This. Her lips parted, closed again. She looked at David. He gave her nothing, no reaction, just stillness. 90 seconds passed. It felt longer. Lauren stepped out of the galley, no menu in her hand. This. She walked straight to seat 2A stopped, looked down at him, and for a moment the entire cabin felt it. That shift, that edge. This. Sir, she said, voice clear enough for others to hear. First-class meals are reserved for actual first-class passengers. A fork dropped somewhere behind them. No one laughed. Yes, no one spoke. The silence wasn't confusion anymore, it was recognition. David looked up at her. His face didn't change. I'd like the lamb, please. Lauren's smile came back. Yes, thin, sharp. We're out of lamb, then Sal have the salmon. We're out of salmon too. Too quick. Too easy. David didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. Yes. He glanced past her, into the galley. The curtain was half open. 3 trays sat untouched on the counter. 2 lamb, 1 salmon. Steam still rising. He saw it. Yes. So did the woman in 2B. So did the man across the aisle. Lauren followed his eyes for half a second, then stepped in front of his view, blocking it. Yes. Like it never existed. Like I said, she added, quieter now, leaning in just enough. We have snack boxes available for purchase in economy. Purchase in first class. The insult was precise, designed, measured. David reached into his jacket, slow, careful, pulled out his phone, set it face down on the tray table, pressed once the red light came on, recording. Lauren didn't notice. She had already turned away, walking back toward the galley. Greg was waiting. He grinned. They exchanged a look. Then a quick slap of hands, a quiet celebration, like they had just won something. Behind them, Dana leaned against the counter, shaking her head with a smirk. Did you see his face? She whispered. Greg laughed. Man thought he was getting lamb. Lauren poured herself coffee. Calm, relaxed. Like this was normal, like this was allowed. In the last row of first class, Emily stood frozen, a stack of napkins pressed against her chest. Her fingers trembled. She had heard everything, every word, every tone. She glanced toward David. He hadn't moved, still sitting upright, still composed, but something in his eyes had shifted. Not anger, not fear. Something colder, something decided. Emily swallowed, reached slowly into her apron pocket, pulled out her phone, hesitated, just for a second, then pressed record. Back at seat 2A, the woman beside David leaned in again, her voice barely above a breath. This isn't right. David turned his head slightly, met her eyes. There was no anger there, no frustration, just clarity. I know, he said. Simple, final. He reached for the notebook again, wrote, 10:12 in the morning. Meal service denied. False claim of no availability. He paused, then added, one more line. Statement made publicly. He underlined that, closed the notebook. Outside the window, the clouds stretched endless and white. Peaceful, untouched. Inside the cabin, something else was building, quiet, controlled, but inevitable. Because moments like this don't disappear. They stack, they record themselves, in memory, in silence. And sometimes they come back all at once. The cart rattled back into the galley, but the noise didn't break the tension. It just made it louder. Lauren leaned against the counter, sipping her coffee like nothing had happened. Greg stood beside her, arms crossed, watching the cabin through the slit in the curtain. People like him always try it, he muttered. Lauren gave a small nod. Not on my flight. Behind them, Dana chuckled. Low, casual, like they were talking about weather. Emily didn't laugh. She stood a few feet away, frozen in place. Her phone was still recording. Her hands were shaking. She kept them close to her body so no one would notice. In the cabin, no one had gone back to normal. Not really. The man in the gray blazer had his seatbelt unlatched now, leaning slightly into the aisle, watching. The woman in 2B had closed her laptop. Not working anymore, just observing, trying to make sense of it. David sat exactly the same, posture straight, hands resting lightly on the tray table. The red recording light still glowing under his palm. He wasn't hiding it, He wasn't showing it either. He just let it be there. The clock above the galley read 10:24 in the morning. Lauren pushed herself off the counter. "Let's finish this," she said. Greg smiled. Not friendly, not even polite, just ready. They stepped back into the aisle together. This time, they didn't bring food. They brought something else. "Authority." "Sir," Lauren said, louder by now. "We've received a report regarding your carry-on bag." The words landed hard. People turned again, not curious anymore. Concerned. David looked up slowly. "What kind of report?" A passenger expressed concern about suspicious behavior. "Which passenger?" "That's confidential." The answer came too fast, too clean. Greg stepped forward, closing the space. "We need you to stand up." David didn't move. "I'd like to understand what the concern is." "You don't need to understand," Greg said. "You need to comply." The tone had changed. No more pretending. The woman in 2B straightened in her seat, her voice low but firm. "I haven't reported anything." Lauren didn't even look at her. "This is not your concern, Mom." The words shut her down, publicly, intentionally. The man in the gray blazer leaned forward. "Is this standard procedure?" Lauren turned her head just enough. Eyes sharp. "Sir, I suggest you remain seated." That was enough. He leaned back. But he didn't stop watching. David exhaled slowly. Then he stood, not rushed, not forced, just stood. Calm, measured. Greg reached up and pulled the carry-on from the overhead bin. Hard. Too hard. The bag dropped into the aisle with a dull thud. A woman in row 3 gasped. No one spoke. Greg unzipped it, right there in the aisle, no warning, no privacy. He started pulling things out. A folded shirt, tossed aside. Dress shoes, dropped. Toiletry kit. Opened, dumped, each movement faster than the last, like he had something to prove, like he needed the room to see it. Brian stepped in from behind, picked up a framed photo. Turned it over. A girl, young, smiling, holding a cello. "Cute kid," he said. "Yours?" David's jaw tightened. "Just a fraction." "Yes," Brian smirked. Set it face down. Didn't even look at him. Lauren picked up a leather portfolio from the bag, ran her fingers over the embossed logo. Didn't recognize it, didn't care. Probably picked this up somewhere, she said, tossing it back. She didn't open it, didn't check. Inside, his identification sat in plain view, ignored. The search ended as quickly as it started. No explanation, no apology. Greg shoved the bag back toward David's chest. "You can repack that yourself." David took it. Carefully, he didn't rush. Picked up the shirt, folded it. Placed it back. One item at a time. The photo last. He turned it upright, straightened it gently, like it mattered, because it did. Then he sat down. The cabin was silent again. Not passive, heavy, watching. Lauren wasn't done. She stepped closer, leaning in just enough, voice low, sharp. "I've been doing this job a long time," she said. "I know when something doesn't belong." Her eyes locked on his. "And you don't." She straightened, turned away, walked back toward the galley. No one clapped, no one spoke. But something had shifted. The line had been crossed. And this time, everyone saw it. The cart rattled back into the galley, but the noise didn't break the tension. It just made it louder. Lauren leaned against the counter, sipping her coffee like nothing had happened. Greg stood beside her, arms crossed, watching the cabin through the slit in the curtain. "People like him always try it," he muttered. Lauren gave a small nod. "Not on my flight." "Behind them?" Dana chuckled. Low, casual, like they were talking about weather. Emily didn't laugh. She stood a few feet away, frozen in place. Her phone was still recording. Her hands were shaking. She kept them close to her body so no one would notice. In the cabin, no one had gone back to normal. Not really. The man in the gray blazer had his seatbelt unlatched now, leaning slightly into the aisle, watching. The woman in 2B had closed her laptop. Not working anymore, just observing, trying to make sense of it. David sat exactly the same, posture straight, hands resting lightly on the tray table. The red recording light still glowing under his palm. He wasn't hiding it. He wasn't showing it either. He just let it be there. The clock above the galley read 10:24 in the morning. Lauren pushed herself off the counter. "Let's finish this," she said. Greg smiled. Not friendly, not even polite, just ready. This. They stepped back into the aisle together. This time, they didn't bring food. They brought something else. Authority. Sir, Lauren said, louder by now. We've received a report regarding your carry-on bag. This. The words landed hard. People turned again, not curious anymore. Concerned. David looked up slowly. What kind of report? A passenger expressed concern about suspicious behavior. Which passenger? This. That's confidential. The answer came too fast, too clean. Greg stepped forward, closing the space. We need you to stand up. David didn't move. This. I'd like to understand what the concern is. You don't need to understand, Greg said. You need to comply. The tone had changed. No more pretending. This. The woman in 2B straightened in her seat, her voice low but firm. I haven't reported anything. Lauren didn't even look at her. This is not your concern, Mom. This. The words shut her down, publicly, intentionally. The man in the gray blazer leaned forward. Is this standard procedure? Lauren turned her head just enough. Eyes sharp. This. Sir, I suggest you remain seated. That was enough. He leaned back. But he didn't stop watching. David exhaled slowly. Then he stood, not rushed, not forced, just stood. This. Calm, measured. Greg reached up and pulled the carry-on from the overhead bin. Hard. Too hard. The bag dropped into the aisle with a dull thud. A woman in row 3 gasped. This. No one spoke. Greg unzipped it, right there in the aisle, no warning, no privacy. He started pulling things out. A folded shirt, tossed aside. Dress shoes, dropped. Toiletry kit. This. Opened, dumped. Each movement faster than the last, like he had something to prove. Like he needed the room to see it. Brian stepped in from behind, picked up a framed photo. This. Turned it over. A girl, young, smiling, holding a cello. Cute kid, he said. Yours? David's jaw tightened. Just a fraction. Yes, Brian smirked. Set it face down. This. Didn't even look at him. Lauren picked up a leather portfolio from the bag, ran her fingers over the embossed logo. Didn't recognize it. Didn't care. This. Probably picked this up somewhere, she said, tossing it back. She didn't open it, didn't check. Inside, his identification sat in plain view. Ignored. The search ended as quickly as it started. This. No explanation, no apology. Greg shoved the bag back toward David's chest. You can repack that yourself. David took it. Carefully. He didn't rush. Picked up the shirt. Folded it. This. Placed it back. One item at a time. The photo last. He turned it upright, straightened it gently, like it mattered, because it did. Then he sat down. The cabin was silent again. This. Not passive, heavy, watching. Lauren wasn't done. She stepped closer, leaning in just enough, voice low, sharp. I've been doing this job a long time, she said. I know when something doesn't belong. This. Her eyes locked on his. And you don't. She straightened, turned away, walked back toward the galley. No one clapped, no one spoke. But something had shifted. The line had been crossed. This. And this time, everyone saw it. The cabin lights dimmed slightly as the plane leveled out. But the tension only sharpened. No one was reading anymore. No one was pretending. This. Every eye drifted back to seat 2A. David sat still, but his presence had changed. Not louder, not bigger, just heavier, the kind of stillness that makes people uneasy. This. In the galley, Lauren poured another cup of coffee, her hand steady, her voice low. He's done, she said. Greg leaned against the counter. Yeah, Captain logged it. This. Security will handle it when we land. Dana smirked. Should've just moved when we asked. They all laughed, except Emily. She stood in the corner back against the storage unit. This. Her phone still recording, hidden low. Her eyes kept moving. From Lauren to Greg, back to the cabin, to David. Something didn't sit right. Not just what they did. This. But how easily they did it. Like it wasn't new. Like it had happened before. That thought stayed with her. Back in the cabin, the woman in 2B leaned closer again. Yes. You're really just going to sit through this? She whispered. David turned his head slightly. His voice was quiet. I'm not just sitting. She frowned. Then what are you doing? This. He didn't answer, not directly. He reached down, picked up his phone, turned it over. The red light was still on. She saw it. Her eyes widened. Oh. She leaned back slowly. This. Understanding. Across the aisle, the gray blazer man noticed too. The shift in his posture said it all. He wasn't just watching anymore. He was waiting. David opened his phone again. This. Typed. Short. Direct. Need full video access from cabin cameras. Last 2 hours pause. Route through secure server. No internal alerts. Send. 3 seconds. Reply. Working on it. Switched apps. This. Another message. Prepare executive call. Priority 1. All board members. Time. 30 minutes. He hit send. Set the phone down. Looked out the window. Clouds rolled beneath the wing. Endless. This. Calm. Nothing like the pressure building inside that cabin. Behind him, a passenger in row 3 spoke under his breath. This doesn't feel right. His wife touched his arm. This. Just don't get involved. That was the pattern. Everyone saw. Few acted. Most stayed quiet. Not because they agreed. Because they were afraid. That's how it spreads. That's how it survives. This. Back in the galley, Lauren checked her watch. We'll start clearing soon, she said. Greg nodded. Good. Let's wrap it. They stepped back into the aisle. Same footings. Same control. This. Lauren stopped again at row 2. Looked down at David. You'll need to remain seated for the rest of the flight, she said. Crew has documented your behavior. Behavior? Yes, the word hung there, rewriting everything that had just happened. David looked up at her, his eyes steady, unmoved. Understood, he said. Nothing more. No defense. No argument. Lauren turned away. Yes, satisfied. She thought she had the final word. She didn't know the conversation had already moved beyond her. Far beyond this cabin. In a quiet office thousands of miles away, screens were lighting up. Yes, names being pulled, records opening, old complaints resurfacing, patterns forming, all connected. All leading back to this moment, back to this flight, back to seat 2A, and the man they thought didn't belong. Yes. Back in the cabin, David reached for his notebook one more time. He wrote slowly, 10:38 in the morning, false report filed to cockpit. He paused, then added one more line. Yes. Escalation complete. He closed the notebook, set it down, folded his hands again, and waited. Not for them, for what was already coming. This. The hum of the engines deepened as the plane cut through a thicker layer of cloud. A slight tremor ran through the cabin. Seatbelts clicked tighter. No one spoke. Not really. This. Because something else had taken over the space. Expectation. David reached down beside his seat, pulled out a slim black laptop. Not rushed. Not hidden. He placed it on the tray table. Look. This. Opened it. The screen lit his face. Calm, focused, intent. The woman in 2B watched closely now. She didn't even pretend to look away. What are you doing? She whispered. This. David didn't answer. He connected to the onboard network, typed a secure login. 2 steps. 3. Then the screen changed. A video window opened. Blank at first, then one face. This. Then another. Then another. 7 in total. All in separate frames. All serious. All waiting. Across from him, the gray blazer man leaned forward, eyes narrowing. He didn't recognize them. This. But he recognized authority when he saw it. David adjusted the screen slightly, so he could see them clearly, so they could see him. David, one of the men said. This. Older, silver hair, sharp eyes. Harold Bennett, chairman of the board. His voice carried weight even through a speaker. We've reviewed the initial data. We've received external footage. David nodded once. This. Good. No emotion. Just confirmation. In the galley, Lauren stepped out again, mid-conversation with Greg. She froze, not because of David, because of what she heard. Full complaint history flagged for review. This. Her head turned slowly. Toward seat 2A, Greg followed her gaze. They both saw the laptop, saw the faces on the screen. Something shifted. Not yet fear, but the edge of it. This. David didn't look at them, not yet. I want the full employment records on all crew members involved, he said. His voice was calm. But it carried. Lauren Whitman, Greg Collins, this. Dana Pierce, Brian Mercer, and Captain Thomas Reed. Silence on the line for half a second. Then another voice, female, precise. Files are already open. Lauren took one step forward. This. What is this? She asked, not loud, but tight, controlled. David didn't answer her. He kept his eyes on the screen. I also want all prior complaints. Unfiltered, no internal summaries. Yes. Greg stepped into the aisle now, closer. Sir, you need to close that device, he said. You're interfering with cabin operations? David finally turned his head, slow, measured. This looked directly at him, held it for just a second, then looked back at the screen. Include internal communications tied to those complaints, he continued, especially anything marked unresolved or dismissed. This. The man in the gray blazer whispered under his breath. Oh my God! The woman in 2B covered her mouth, not in shock, in realization. Lauren's voice rose now. This. Sir, I'm going to need you to shut that down immediately. David didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even acknowledge her. Timeline, he said to the screen. Within 15 minutes. This. Harold Bennett leaned forward. You'll have it. Lauren stepped closer, right into his space now. Did you hear me? Her voice cracked, just slightly. David turned. Fully this time. This. Met her eyes, no anger, no satisfaction. Just truth. Yes, simple, clear, and then just as calm. I heard you. He turned the laptop, just enough so she could see. This. So Greg could see 7 faces, senior executives, legal, human resources, board leadership, all looking back, all listening. Lauren's expression changed, not all at once, piece by piece. Confusion first. This. Then doubt. Then something colder. Greg's smirk disappeared completely. The air in the cabin shifted again, heavier, sharper, because for the first time, the question wasn't about David anymore. It was about them. This. And whether they had just Maddie's worst mistake of their careers. No one spoke for a full second, then 2, then 3. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was pressure. This. Lauren's eyes moved from one face on the screen to the next, trying to place them, trying to understand what she was looking at. Greg leaned in closer. Too close. Yes. Like proximity would give him control again. Who are these people? He asked. His voice was different now. Still trying to sound firm, but something underneath had cracked. David didn't answer him. This. He turned the screen slightly back toward himself, centered it. Harold, he said. The older man nodded. I'm here. I want confirmation on complaint history. A pause. Not long. This. But heavy. Then Harold spoke. Lauren Whitman. 14 prior complaints, 11 years, all involving service discrimination. Lauren's face went still, completely still. Greg Collins. 3 complaints, similar pattern. This. Greg took a step back, just one. But it was enough. Dana Pierce. 5, including one involving refusal of assistance to a disabled passenger. Dana's smirk vanished. This. Her arms dropped to her sides. Brian Mercer silence. Then the final one. Captain Thomas Reed. 1 formal warning. Failure to properly investigate a crew incident. The words didn't need emphasis. This. They carried their own weight. The man in the gray blazer exhaled slowly. Jesus. The woman in 2B stared at Lauren. Not with shock anymore, with something else. This. Judgment. Because now it wasn't a moment. It was a pattern. Lauren shook her head slightly. No, that's not. Her voice trailed off. She couldn't finish. David watched her. This. Not with anger. Not with satisfaction. Just with clarity. This isn't about one flight, he said. His voice, calm, steady. It's about what you've been allowed to do for years. This. Greg stepped forward again, desperate now. Sir, we follow protocol. We're trained to identify risks. David raised one hand, just slightly. Greg stopped. Mid-sentence, like someone had cut the power. This. Then David reached for his phone, tapped once. The cabin filled with sound. Lauren's voice, clear, sharp. First-class meals are reserved for actual first-class passengers. A pause. This. Then Dana's voice. Oh, clumsy me, the sound of water hitting fabric. Then Greg. Use the rear restroom. Each word landed harder than the last. No one moved. This. No one spoke. The recording stopped. The silence came back. But it wasn't the same silence. This one had truth in it. Lauren's lips parted. No sound came out. Greg looked down. This, for the first time, actually looked down. Dana turned away. Like distance could erase what had just been heard. David closed the audio, set the phone down. Then he stood. This, slow, measured. The movement alone shifted the room. He adjusted his jacket, straightened the front, looked out across the cabin, made eye contact with people. One by one, ladies and gentlemen, he said. Yes. His voice carried, clear, controlled. I apologize for the disruption. No one breathed. My name is David Brooks. A pause, small, intentional. Yes. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Sterling Horizon Aviation Group. The words landed. Hard, immediate. Greg's face drained of color. Dana took a step back. Lauren didn't move at all. This. Couldn't. This airline, David continued, is a subsidiary of that group. Another pause. Longer now. I boarded this flight under my real name, in my assigned seat. He looked directly at Lauren. Yes. And over the past 3 hours, I have been denied service, publicly humiliated, and falsely reported. No raised voice, no anger, just facts. And that made it worse. Yes. Behind him, someone whispers, "Oh my God," another voice. "He's serious." David turned slightly back toward the laptop. "Harold," he said. The older man nodded once. "Ready." David's voice didn't change. "Yes. I want immediate termination proceedings initiated." The words were calm, but final, effective before landing. And just like that, the room understood. This wasn't a threat. This wasn't an emotion. This was consequence, already in motion. The printer in the galley came to life with a sharp mechanical whir, a sound no passenger had noticed before. Until now, paper fed through. Slow at first, then steady. Lauren turned toward it, confused. Greg followed. Dana stepped closer. The first sheet slid out, thin, white, unforgiving. Greg reached for it, hands not as steady as before. He read the first line, and froze. Termination notice. Effective immediately, his name, Greg Collins. His grip tightened on the paper. He read it again, like it might change. It didn't. Behind him, another sheet printed. Then another. Lauren's, Dana's, Brian's. 5 in total. 5 names. 5 endings. The sound of the printer stopped. But the silence it left behind was louder. Lauren took her paper slowly, eyes scanning, lips moving. She didn't breathe for a moment, then she looked up at David. Not with anger, not anymore. With something else. Fear. Real, unfiltered. "I didn't know," she said. Her voice broke halfway through. "I didn't know who you were." The words came out fast, desperate, like they could still fix something. David stepped closer, not aggressive, not rushed, just present. He looked at her, held her gaze for a long moment, then spoke. "You didn't need to. Quiet, clear, final. You just needed to treat me like a person." The words landed deeper than anything before. Lauren's shoulders dropped. Just slightly. Enough. Greg took a step back. Sat down in an empty seat without thinking, like his legs had given up. Dana wiped her hands on her uniform, over and over, like she could clean something that wasn't visible. Brian stood still, paper crumpled in his fist. Across the cabin, the man in the gray blazer shook his head slowly, not in anger, in recognition, because now it made sense. All of it. The pattern, the silence, the fear. The woman in 2B lowered her phone for the first time. She didn't need to record anymore. It was already over. David turned back to the laptop. "Harold." The chairman nodded. "All documents have been transmitted," he said. "Human resources and legal are coordinating on the ground." David gave a single nod. No satisfaction, no celebration, just closure. In the cockpit, a second printer had started. Captain Reed stared at the paper in his hand. His name, same words, same outcome. He sat back slowly. The co-pilot beside him glanced over. "What happened?" He didn't answer, because he already knew. He had signed off on a lie, and now it had signed off on him. Back in the cabin, David folded each notice, one by one, carefully. He walked down the aisle, no rush, no drama. He handed Greg his paper. Greg took it without looking up. Lauren next. Her hands trembled as she accepted it, tears forming. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet. Dana. She took hers with a whisper of breath. Brian. He dropped his. David bent down, picked it up, smoothed it out, placed it back in his hand. "You'll need that," he said. Simple, practical. Then he turned, walked forward toward the cockpit. Knocked once, slid the final notice through the door slot, and that was it. 5 careers. Gone. Not because of a single mistake, but because of something deeper. Something repeated. Something ignored for too long. David returned to his seat, sat down, adjusted his jacket, looked out the window. The clouds had cleared. Below them, land stretched out in quiet detail. Unbothered, unaware. Inside the cabin, no one spoke. No one moved, because everyone understood what they had just seen. Power, not loud, not angry, but precise. And for the first time on that flight, justice didn't feel distant. It felt immediate. The wheels touched the runway with a firm, controlled impact. A low thud. Then the long roll. No applause, no chatter. Just silence stretching from the cockpit to the last row. The plane slowed, turned, taxied toward the gate. Inside the cabin, no one moved. No one reached for their bags. Yes, because this wasn't a normal landing. It was an ending and a beginning. David sat in seat 2A, exactly as he had for the last 3 hours. Back straight. Yes. Hands calm, eyes forward. Across the aisle, the gray blazer man glanced at him again, this time with respect. Not curiosity, not doubt. Respect. The woman in 2B closed her phone slowly. She didn't look at David. She didn't need to. She had already seen enough. The aircraft came to a stop. Engines idling. Seatbelt signs still on. Then the door opened. Not for passengers. For them. 2 men in dark suits stepped in first. Then a woman with a tablet, then another. Corporate security, human resources, legal. All quiet, all focused. They didn't look around. They walked straight down the aisle, toward the galley. Lauren stood frozen. Greg didn't move. Dana's eyes dropped to the floor. Brian's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. No resistance, no argument. The moment had already passed. Lauren Whitman, one of the men said, not loud, not aggressive, just final. She stepped forward, slow, like her body hadn't caught up with reality yet. Greg followed, then Dana, then Brian, one by one. They walked past the passengers they had served, past the seats they had controlled, past the space they once owned, now silent, now watching. As they reached the front, someone in row 1 started clapping. Once, twice, then stopped. It wasn't celebration, it was release. David didn't clap. He didn't move. He stayed seated as they were escorted off the aircraft. No words, no eye contact, just consequences. The cabin door closed again. This time for passengers. The seatbelt sign turned off, a soft chime, but still no one stood. They waited, almost as if something in them needed a moment, to process, to settle. David finally reached for his bag. Lifted it, placed it on his shoulder. The movement broke the stillness. People stood, slowly, carefully, no rush. As he stepped into the aisle, the man in the gray blazer spoke. Sir! David paused, turned slightly. The man hesitated, searching for the right words, then gave up. Thank you, he said. Simple, honest. David nodded once. That was enough. The woman in 2B met his eyes as he passed. No words, just understanding, shared, real. He stepped off the plane, into the jet bridge, where more people were waiting. More suits, more quiet urgency. But David didn't slow down, didn't stop. He walked forward, like he always had, like this was never about power, it was about something else. Something older, something deeper, dignity, the kind no title gives, the kind no one should take, and that's what stayed behind on that flight. Not the fear, not the humiliation, but the lesson, that you don't need to know who someone is to treat them right. You just need to remember they're human. If this story stayed with you, take a second to support it. Hit like. Subscribe for more stories that remind us what respect really looks like. And drop 3 words in the comments that say it best. Never stay silent.